Today, I'm gonna try to build a working LEGO submarine to see how deep it can go before it fills with water. I've now built 2 LEGO boats, and both of them have filled with water, but miraculously stayed floating. This time, we're gonna try and get a LEGO watercraft to actually sink. The first step, though, is to build up the outside of the hull using bricks. So my plan is to build a remote control submarine with a depth gauge so we can see how deep down it goes. And it'll have motors so it can go forward and backwards and turn. And I'm gonna make the hull big enough for some LEGO minifigures and a camera so we can actually see what's going on the inside. But to make this whole submarine expedition even possible, we're gonna need to overcome 3 major engineering obstacles. Number 1, Legos aren't watertight. When you build Legos together, there's some really tiny tolerances between the bricks that are just wide enough to let water drip through. I've learned this the hard way multiple times on multiple LEGO watercraft. In the past, we've already tried putting saran wrap between 2 layers of bricks, which doesn't really work because the bricks just end up tearing the saran wrap. But there is one other option for this, which is to build a box and then put LEGO stickers around the seams so that the water can't get in. And I'm pretty sure if we do that for the inside of our hull, that should be a good enough solution to keep the electronics dry. Now that we have our hull built up, we kind of know the size we want for this. For the waterproof section of this, that's actually gonna hold like the interior and the motors and stuff, I'm gonna use some of these big panels because they're big and we can snap them together with minimal seams that we'll have to put LEGO stickers on top of. So if we snap a few of these together, this will sit in here, it'll be a bit longer, and then we'll have the rest of the submarine that kind of goes around it like this. So we still get the submarine shape. It's still perfectly round on the outside. We're gonna put all the motors and everything inside the box so those won't get wet. We just need to figure out how to motorize our propellers, which are outside the box. Which brings us to our second obstacle, which is motorizing it. And in case you haven't heard, LEGO motors aren't waterproof. And most likely, if any water got to this, it would just stop working and we'd be dead in the water, literally. So we have to figure out a way to keep them dry underwater. To fix this, my first idea is to build a pneumatic motor, which will pump air through these little watertight tubes out into where the propeller is on the outside of the submarine. Because if you think about it, the only thing that needs to be waterproof are the motors and the batteries. And I think we can have these floating above the surface on a really long tether, because we're gonna have to get power and controls to this anyway. To build a pneumatic engine, it's actually not as hard as you think. We have one of these things called a pneumatic actuator, and this thing is like a little piston with air and 2 outlets right here. So all we have to do is figure out how to make this open and close a bunch of times to create airflow. And to do that, I'm gonna use a gear like this, and then we just thread that through there. Boom. Now watch this. When we turn this on, it opens and closes the actuator, which means we're getting airflow through both of these tubes. So what I'm thinking is if we take 2 LEGO tubes like this, we put one on this side, one on this side, and we attach this to a second actuator. The idea is that these tubes will be able to go through little Technic holes and be completely sealed inside of the little waterproof box. Now, we'll get airflow. Hold on, I got this. See, we got a little bit of movement. Clearly, we need to come up with a little bit of a better generator design because this one is extremely inefficient. Alternatively, what if we just used air? Like, obviously we're using air, but like, what if we used air to actually propel the submarine forward? Now, how much air does this actually generate? Not a lot. I'm a little unsure what to do here. The first design should work in theory because you're taking the same amount of air and just pushing it from one piston to another. So, I don't know how bad of an idea this is, but I think we should try filling one up with water and see if that works. So I've done some experimentation and research, and I found this piece that LEGO used to make, which is a boat propeller. And this thing is completely waterproof. All you have to do is twist the bottom, and it turns on. And this actually goes pretty fast underwater, so I think this would be perfect to propel our submarine. It also has this steering mechanism, which is just a rudder, and when you turn it one way or the other, it will actually tell the jet which way to go, so we can steer the submarine. So we have to figure out how to use pneumatics to turn this, to start the propeller, and to move this thing back and forth. So what we need to do is create a pneumatic motor, and what we should be able to do is build up enough pressure that when we release it, it will open up this thing. I'm gonna try and build this thing up to be a little bit more compact, and add a few more pumps to it so it'll build up more power. All right, guys, I've biohacked this thing, and I am proud. Watch this. All we have to do, turn on the motor, then we can flip this nozzle, and that will turn it on, and then we can just flip the nozzle back, and that will pull this up and turn off our motor. Let's go. The only thing about this is this thing is way too big, so we need to really optimize this, make it small, but also powerful enough to actually run this whole thing. And then we just need to add one more of these little pistons right here so the submarine will turn. Guys, I did it, check it out. You just open and close this thing and it turns the rudder. But this doesn't require a constant flow of air. This just needs one motor and one little cam to turn this thing. Now that we have the basics of our mechanics and our pumps built up, we need to actually create the waterproof box that's gonna sit inside our submarine. I'm trying to think of how I can fit everything I need inside this box I'm building. And so basically I'm extending our sub just a little bit. I extended it 6 studs, so theoretically we can fit this guy, which is now longer, inside of this, and we'll have a lot of room for hopefully everything we need. And that's gonna include room for minifigures and a camera and a light so we can actually see what's going on in the submarine. I just have to upgrade the base a little bit to accompany it, and we can add everything in. And with that, we come to obstacle number 3, making this thing actually sink down in the water and rise up using remote control. The way they accomplish this on real submarines is with what they call ballast tanks, which actually fill with water to increase the weight of the submarine so it becomes negatively buoyant and sinks to the bottom. And then when they want to come back up, they just pressurize those tanks to release the water so they can rise to the top. To build the ballast tank, we're gonna use a syringe so that we can just suck in water to increase the weight and make it negatively buoyant. And I want to shout out Brick Experiment channel because he made a LEGO submarine a long time ago with a syringe as the ballast, and that was really smart. So what we can do is take a piece like this LEGO train wheel and put it right there and kind of sandwich it in between there and run an axle through so that we can connect this to our actuator. See, check it out. And now we can open our syringe and suck in water. I'm gonna clip off the end of this and then feed a pneumatic tube through, and that'll go to the outside of the submarine so we can actually suck in water. Oh yes. I don't see a lot of air bubbles in there. Really, not any. That's as much water as we can get in it. So we might need one more of these. No, we barely have room for one of these. We need to see if all the stuff fits in this box. Starting with our camera, which we'll put over here. And then we have our propeller right here on the back. These tubes will feed into the box to our generator, which we can put here. Then we need our steering generator. To power the steering for this thing, I'm just gonna hook up a pneumatic actuator to a motorized actuator. And then if we spin that, it'll translate into this, therefore pushing the air and turning the rudder. You might remember that switch we were using earlier to turn the motor on and off, and this piece is just connected to that. It's a motor, and so it just switches it on and switches it off like that. And it has 2 little stoppers so it doesn't go too far. Since we don't have room for another one of these, we're gonna have to just go with this much, and then we're just gonna make it equally buoyant, so that way it'll just take like even a penny on top of it and it will sink down. So we got 4 tubes that need to come out of this, so I'm gonna grab some of these Technic bricks, and then we're gonna take our pneumatic tube. If we thread this all the way through and pull it really hard, it should create a watertight seal. Now we have the waterproof separation between the generators and stuff and the propeller that's gonna be outside of this box. Now the tough thing is we have all these wires. So all these cables come through here. Now that is not watertight. This is the only place on the boat we're gonna have to cheat and use a little bit of glue. I found these little LEGO Marines, which will be our minifigures. In this room here, we're gonna have a camera and a light. So I'm gonna put a few minifigures in a simple little control station so we can see if they'll make it through the end. Here we have our waterproof box, but it's not exactly waterproof yet. So we have our LEGO stickers, which were kindly sent by Krazy's Bricklink store, the sponsor of this video. They are super awesome. Literally sent me like 20 packs of LEGO stickers from a set. Krazy's Bricklink store has a bunch of new and used LEGO parts and minifigures and stickers. I've really liked their store for a while because they ship really fast and they're super nice over there. So if you do want to increase your LEGO collection, click the link down in the description. So we basically need to take these, and I'm gonna avoid doing this section here because this needs to pop off so we can actually access the camera. But the rest of this box around the edges needs to be stickered over the little cracks so that no water seeps in. I'm super hoping this technique will actually work, but we got a lot of stickers, so let's get sticking. In order to be able to control our submarine from the surface, we're gonna need some really long cables. So I bought some Cat 6 Ethernet cable, and what I'm gonna do is separate all the wires and resolder them onto the ends of our motors. And since this thing's gonna be attached to a tether so we don't lose it underwater, we'll just run all these wires up the tether so we can run it to the handheld controller. This will make our wires waterproof. Now that we have our box waterproofed, we can put that on top, and then we just need to build up the rest of the walls for the submarine so we can actually put it underwater and test it out. Another thing I have to add into this is what's called a depth gauge. This goes on like a scuba watch for scuba diving, and as you can see, I've built in this little window here. So when we turn on the light, we can put this depth gauge facing in like that so we can actually see it from the inside camera. And then we're gonna have this light here, which will turn on and face outward. Hopefully with the 360 camera we're gonna put on this, we can actually see where the submarine is going, and it'll just look cooler. I'm a little worried the weight will be off for the ratio here, but we'll see if it works and then go from there, I guess. Pro tip, don't be worried about something until it actually is worry-worthy. And now we just gotta keep building up the walls until we get to the top. Basically, the last thing we have to do for this is just finish building the top and add our 360 camera. This is a really cool device that's gonna allow us to see all the way around the submarine, and I'm gonna build it into sort of like a periscope tower, somewhere about here. And we'll just leave a little bit open for the lens. We're super close to having this thing done, you guys. I didn't actually get footage of this part because I thought it would work fine, but basically I had to test the weight of the submarine so I could make it neutrally buoyant. That way the ballast tank would work. And a few minutes after I put it in the water, I realized it was filling up. Oh no, that's not good. I was trying to measure the weight so we could figure out the ballast tank, but it wasn't sinking. So now we gotta figure out what next to do here. I really wasn't sure why it filled up with water so quickly, so I decided to run a few tests with some Lego boxes completely covered in stickers, and the results were really bad. Dude, it's completely flooded with water. You can also see the water was getting in through the bottom right next to those stickers on the bottom, so the stickers don't even really work that well. Since we can't waterproof the interior, it's basically just gonna be a ticking time bomb before all the electronics stop. We are left with this single option, because I am not giving up. I wanna see this thing go underwater. You guys wanna see this thing sink down in the water, so we are gonna sink it. So to decrease the amount of potential water that can flood in, I'm gonna do a couple things. First, I'm gonna build up some brick walls right next to the box. That way it'll squeeze the stickers together a little tighter and hopefully keep more water out. I'm also going to remove our ballast tank, since it's impossible to trim a submarine that's slowly filling up with water. And that will not only remove another hole from the box, but it'll free up some more space on the inside. And finally, I'm going to add a few more stickers to the inside and the outside of the box to make it as seamless as I possibly can, in hopes that we'll have such a minuscule amount of water coming in, we'll be able to go deeper without it filling up. With all that done, it is time to seal this up and see how deep we can actually get it to go. Maybe even drive it around at the bottom if it makes it that far. This is the culmination of about a month of work, and I'm about to sink it in a lake. So we headed out on the water and I turned on the cameras and sealed up the sub. I also added a 6-pound weight to the bottom so it would actually sink. I got my custom built controller right here. We got a GoPro right on top. So if we turn this on, there we go, we got propulsion, check it out. All right, so we are good to go. The sub's going in the water. I got my GoPro. Here we have the line that's gonna hold it up. Let's do this. We're off the side. We gotta wait for it to fill up a little bit before it'll sink down. You can see we're right there. We can turn it. The rudder will move. There we go, the rudder moved. We're getting close to neutral buoyancy. This is the moment we've all been waiting for. After a month of building, will it sink? For now, since it is floating around, we can test some of the controls. We will test the motor. So for the motor, we gotta hit this. You should see, is it on? It's not a good sign when air bubbles come out. All right, the propeller shot, I don't know why, but we gotta try and get it to sink now. It's ready to sink, but everything else has gone out. It's basically a disaster at this point, but we're gonna go down to the bottom, sink it, and see what we can see. Here we go. Now it's going under. All right, we're gonna set her down here. It's ready. Bye. Here goes. We are sinking down. We're going. Let's see how deep we can get it to go. Oh gosh. 1 foot at a time. I can't feel when it hits the bottom. It's still going down. Oh, I think we've hit the bottom. I wonder if the inside is flooded. I have no idea what any of this looks like, you guys. I'm just waiting to see basically the footage when it comes back up. But the inside, we know we got a captain in there. We have a few crew members. We also have a lot of electronics. I have no idea if they're getting wrecked right now. I don't know. I guess it's time to pull it back up. I think that's as far as we were going down. Man, it's pretty far down there. Like, I don't know how far we got, but it's down there. Oh, it's still attached, that's a good thing. Looks like a shark, bro. Bam, there we go. Hey. Oh my gosh, it's completely filled. Here we have our submarine. We made it back up to the top with the footage. I'm actually pretty psyched how that turned out. So even though it didn't work out quite like I thought it would, I still had a ton of fun designing this. And just maybe, if I find a way to waterproof Lego, I'll try this again in the future. Comment down below if you know how I could have done this better, and big thanks to my sister for rowing us across the lake like 6 times. Thanks for watching. See ya.